What's up guys, JT Shaver with New Layer, and I really need a haircut. In this video, I'm going to show you the Godox SL150W II and how this version fixes all of the main issues people had with the original. The two most popular lights over the past few years have been the SL60W and the SL150W. They're essentially unbeatable for the price, but there was one main issue with them that kept them from being universally loved, and that was, and still is, the fan noise. So what if I told you that this new version is completely silent? I'm not going to tease the fan upgrades to you and then hide them at the end of the video, but I do want you to watch the whole thing because there are other significant upgrades to this light besides the fan. So with the very first versions of the original SL150W, the fan noise was just extremely loud. The return rate for those lights was so high that Godox upgraded the fans in those to be quieter, and they were a little better, but there were still some issues with quality control, so it was kind of hit or miss whether or not you got a good unit or a bad one. The bad copies kind of tarnished the reputation of the SL series and made people stay away from them a little bit. When the FV series of lights came out, it had a new design for the body and the fan, and it was not only quieter, but it was a lower pitched and smoother fan sound as well. All that leads me to the SL150W II. It essentially uses an identical fan and body as the FV series lights, so right away it fixes the main issue that people had, and the fan is much quieter. I'm going to play an audio comparison of the SL60W followed by the FV200 and then finally the SL150W II so you can hear the fan noise difference. I boosted the audio levels the same across all three lights so they're more audible, but you can compare the difference in the fan noise. So as you can hear, the SL150W II is quietest out of all three of these, and it's actually the quietest Godox light out of all 6 that I own. So not only is the fan a lot quieter, but the biggest thing is that you can now manually turn this fan completely off. There's a single dedicated button on the back that lets you toggle the fan on and off, and the only catch is that when you turn the fan off, you're limited to a certain brightness. That's to keep the unit from overheating, and when I measured this with my Sekonic C800, and when I turned the fan off, the brightness dropped from 6,780 lux to 2,450 lux. So the difference is about 1 1/3 of a stop. So I got 36% of the total power output when I turned the fan off with this light, and the funny thing is that that is exactly the same brightness as the Godox SL60W. Now, turning the fan off isn't a new feature with COB lights. For example, there's the Nanlite Forza 60, which you can turn the fan off, and you get about 1/3 of the overall power with that light as well. Granted, that's a 60-watt light, so the overall brightness is much less than this light. There's also the Pixel C220, and you can turn the fan off with that light, but it'll automatically turn back on as the light heats up. There are some others out there with similar features, but I don't think any come close to what the Godox SL150W II can do at the same price. Really quickly, I want to mention that Godox is releasing the UL150 sometime soon, and that is a completely fanless design, so it's going to be quiet 100% of the time. There are some significant differences between the UL150, the SL150 II, and the other lights in Godox lineup. I'll be doing a complete comparison video between all 5 series of their lights as soon as they come out, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that one. So apart from the fan noise, what else has changed? The next most important thing to me is the build quality and the design of the light. The build quality of the original SL150W was not bad, but this one is just a step up. The materials feel great, it's a lot sleeker and easier to use, and it just feels really solid. I've had the FV200 for a while, and it's been my favorite light to use anytime that I can, and this light borrows the 2 best things about that design in the body design and the fan upgrade. On top of that, this also adds the ability to manually turn the fan off, which is awesome. The only thing the FV series has over the SL Mark II is that it has flash functionality. It's useful in some situations, but it's not as bright as a dedicated flash, so I would still recommend getting studio strobes for photography and continuous lights for video. The price difference between the SL150W Mark II and the FV150 is only $10, so you'll have to decide for yourself. but for me, I think the ability to turn the fan completely off is a bigger priority than having some extra flash functionality. Another nice feature that they added to the Mark II of this light are the built-in effects. The original didn't have any effects, and this one has a few, including things like simulating lightning, a flickering TV set, and a burning out light bulb. As far as brightness goes, the Mark II version is not much different than the original SL150W. I measured both with my Sekonic C800, and the difference in lux translates to 1/3 of a stop.
One important note is that the original SL150W had a minimum brightness of only 10%, but sometimes 10% was still too bright. The Mark II lets you go down all the way to 1% and also uses a new reflector design that's more efficient than the original, so you do get a little bump when you're shooting into external diffusion or bouncing it off another surface.
So I wouldn't choose this light over the original SL150W if you're specifically looking for more brightness, because I don't think that's one of the upgrades that makes it a significant change from the original. I also measure the color accuracy of this light against all my other Godox lights, and it's right in the same range as all those. My specific light came in at 5,759 Kelvin, so it's right in that plus or minus 200 Kelvin range that you can expect from most LED lights. I got a CRI of 96.9 with R9, R13, and R15 values of 93.9, 97.9, and 95, so all really good for rendering skin tones. I also got a TLCI of 97. For the TM30, I got an RF of 92 and an RG of 101, and this light does have a slight magenta tint, but LED lights typically green up over time in my experience, so this light should actually become a little more accurate the more that you use it. For the SSI, I got 72 versus the D55 daylight standard, which is not quite as good as some of the high-end lights that are typically closer to 74 or 75, but considering this light is less than half the price, it's a really small difference. The SL150 Mark II comes with a new remote, so instead of the RCA5, it's the RCA6, and there's really not that many differences. The RCA6 can control the SL Mark II series as well as the FV series lights. It also just gives you more options with channels and grouping.
You probably already noticed, but the yoke and the mounting bracket on the SL150W Mark II is much sturdier design. The Mark II does a much better job with large and heavy softboxes.
The SL150W Mark I goes for $235, and that might drop over time with the release of this light, and the cost of the Mark II is $339. You can also get the 200 watt version of the Mark II light for $439, and the 200 watt version of the Mark I is going to be $350. So it's about $100 difference between the Mark I and the Mark II versions, and I think the price difference is well worth it. So the SL series, both the Mark I and Mark II, as well as the FV series lights, do not support V-mount batteries. The VL and UL series lights do, but it's kind of a trade-off because on these lights, the power and the controller is built into the head unit. Personally, I prefer it that way because that way you just have the light and one power cord, whereas when you have the VL or the UL series lights, you have the light, the controller, the AC adapter, and 2 or 3 extra cords. It is something to consider if you think you'll really need V-mount support in the future. So the one thing that I really wish they would have added with this light is a case. It doesn't come with any case at all, but I can understand why. It's still meant to be a low budget light, and adding a case would be another $50 or so, and the original SL150W didn't have a case, so it's not like it's a downgrade. Overall, I think the changes they made to the Mark II version of this light make it the ideal light for somebody that still wants something on a budget, but wants something more flexible than the entry-level 60 watt lights. Obviously, this light's going to be brighter than the SL60W, which doesn't have a Mark II version, at least not yet, but apart from the brightness, this is a big upgrade in every other way. In my experience, 60 watt lights work really well in controlled environments, but usually they're just not bright enough to be used for much else. I really like how Godox is kind of focusing on the sweet spot of 150 watts. It's still within budget for most people, and it's going to be bright enough that it's not something that you'll have to upgrade really soon in the future. What do you think? Are the upgrades in the Mark II version of this light worth it to you, or will you stick with the SL150W Mark I, or go with a different brand completely? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'll have links to all the lights that I mentioned in the description, and they are affiliate links, but it doesn't cost you anything extra, and it really helps me create more videos like this. That's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.